In Colombia, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace held public hearings to clarify the facts occurred in the framework of the armed conflict. In the United Nations, Russia denounced before the Security Council the bad intentions of the West after the missile incident in Poland. And in Sudan, military and opposition representatives reached their preliminary agreement on the country's transitional period. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo from the headquarters of Quito in Ecuador. This is from the south. In Colombia, a public hearing of the Special Jurisdiction for Peace was held to clarify the facts that occurred in the framework of the armed conflict in 27 cemeteries in the region in order to search for people reported missing. The public hearing was held in the center of the country in the municipality of Marsella, department of Risaralda. During the event, the JEP urged that precautionary measures be taken in 27 of the region's cemeteries to search for the people reported missing. Also, during the hearing, the territorial nature of the conflict, which has mainly affected rural areas of the country, was highlighted. In Peru, nearly 1,000 artisanal fishermen and merchants affected by the Repsol oil spill are demanding the extension of the list the government is using to grant economic compensations. The protesters are also asking the Spanish company Repsol to comply with the economic obligations that affect more than 2,000 families because of the oil spill. The citizens are requesting the technical reports that will allow them to know the real number of people affected and thus be able to negotiate a fair compensation with the transnational company. This Wednesday, the Chilean Ministry of Health informed about the first death related to monkeypox. The agency specified that the patient was an adult male who had been diagnosed on September 29th. According to specialists, the patient suffered from an underlying pathology that complicated the disease. The Pan American Health Organization reports 51 deaths due to monkeypox, 31 of which correspond to the Latin American region. The Mexican government rejected the immigration control actions announced by Texas under the pretext of defending the common border against an alleged migrant invasion. In a statement, the Mexican Foreign Ministry pointed out that only the federal government could issue the application of migratory laws, border control, and the negotiation of international agreements. Therefore, only the federal governments of both countries can hold dialogues on these matters. The governor of Texas announced that the Department of Public Safety agents would be able to arrest and deport illegal migrants at the border. The president of Mexico, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, announced that on Sunday, November 27th, he will lead a march in support of his 4 years in office. The president stated that the reason for the mobilization is to celebrate his 4th anniversary in power and the official presentation of his annual government report. The president acknowledged that the march will serve as a political thermometer in order to determine whether the population agrees or disagrees with his administration. The original date for the presentation of the report was scheduled for December 1st, but the decision was made to bring forward the presentation so that the activity could coincide with the mobilization. The government of Jamaica decreed this week a state of public emergency to combat rising violence in several police divisions and parishes on the island. The provision was decreed by the authorities through 2 separate orders. The first covers the parishes of Clarendon and St. Catherine, as well as the police divisions of the capital Kingston and St. Catherine, while the second covers the districts of St. James, Westmoreland, and Hanover. The Prime Minister Andrew Holmes decided to recommend the Governor General Patrick Allen the declaration of a state of emergency after an extensive study and with the advice of those responsible for public safety. And Barbados Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley announced the island will embark on the development of a pharmaceutical industry together with Guyana in cooperation with Rwanda and other international partners.
We have been saying this over and over again. The level of crime in our country is over and above the capacity of our regular law enforcement. It is not a situation that is unique to Jamaica. Many island states have not looked at national security in the sophisticated way that they needed to over the last 30 years to make the investments in intelligence gathering, communications, transportation, border control, investment in the training of our security forces, and in the training of the officers of the security forces. Now we are doing that, but it takes time to build the capacity.
And the Prime Minister also stated that this will also represent opportunities for all Barbadian graduates.
This has been a major achievement for a small state like Barbados to be able to locate itself at the center of the Americas as a location for the development of a pharmaceutical industry.
We're taking our first break now. Join us again after this, but also don't forget to follow us on our TikTok account at teleSUR English for more news. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. Russia denounced in the United Nations Security Council the bad intentions of the West after the missile incident in Poland. Russia's permanent representative to the UN, Vasily Nimbetsia, stated on Wednesday that Ukraine and Poland tried to provoke a direct confrontation between Russia and the NATO. The Russian representative indicated that when the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, blamed Moscow, it was impossible that he was unaware that precisely the Ukrainian missiles launched by the anti-aircraft defense system had reached the territory of Poland, according to his words. This means that this is not only deliberate disinformation, but a conscious attempt to involve NATO in a direct confrontation with Russia.
It was Ukrainian missiles that crossed into Polish territory launched by Ukrainian air defense systems. That means that this is not just an intentional attempt of disinformation, but a conscious attempt to involve NATO, which is conducting a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine, to involve it into a direct conflict with our country.
On Wednesday, the Chinese Foreign Ministry called for calm and restraint from the parties after a missile attack on a Polish village near the Ukrainian border.
We have taken note of relevant reports. Given present circumstances, all concerned parties should remain calm and exercise restraint to avoid an escalation of the conflict. China's position on the Ukrainian issue has been consistent and clear. The most pressing task at hand is to keep the dialogue open for a peaceful resolution to this conflict.
In Indonesia, the G20 summit came to an end with a joint declaration in favor of the peaceful resolution of conflicts and the protection of macroeconomic stability. The heads of states participating in the summit, which took place in the city of Bali, issued a joint declaration in which they set out the key points that were addressed during the event. Among them, the importance of implementing mechanisms that allow for the peaceful resolution of conflicts. The representatives also pledged to jointly address the global food crisis, especially in developing countries, so that they can respond to global challenges. They also agreed to work to protect macroeconomic and financial stability. And during his stay in Indonesia, Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez met with the head of the IMF, and they agreed to discuss in December about the surcharges paid by indebted countries to improve their financial situation. During the meeting, Fernandez pointed out that the conflict in Ukraine has cost his country some $5 billion due to the increase in energy prices. The head of the IMF expressed her enthusiasm with the meeting and stressed the importance of Argentina's progress in reducing inflation. Argentinian authorities also reached the $5 billion financial exchange agreement with China after Fernandez met with President Xi Jinping on Tuesday. And we have a disclaimer to announce. Our Facebook page was hacked and is currently displaying content out of our agenda and against our social, moral, political, and informative premises. We stress that teleSUR English is not responsible for these posts that violate Facebook's community standards. We invite our viewers to join us on our new Facebook page at teleSUR English Official to stay up to date on current world events. We're taking our final break now. Join us again after this, but also don't forget to follow me on my Twitter account at Ibravo Telesur for more. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. More news now. In Sudan, military and opposition representatives reached a preliminary agreement on the transitional period in the country. According to Yasir Arman, spokesman for the largest opposition movement in Sudan, a framework contract was agreed with the government of the country. He also specified that in spite of the agreement on the transition period, 4 clauses of the contract are still to be defined. The talks began in June in Khartoum and were accompanied by international delegations. On Wednesday, a second contingent of Kenya's troops deployed under the banner of a regional bloc arrived in the war-ravaged east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The soldiers flew into Goma and Nairobi as part of over 900 Kenyan troops expected to arrive in Congo. East African Community troops will join them to help the Congolese government battle rebels who now control key localities, forcing thousands of citizens to flee their homes. The M23 rebel group rose to prominence about a decade ago when its fighters seized control of Goma. They later entered into a peace agreement with the government but re-emerged late last year, saying the terms had not been met. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, more than 230,000 people fled their homes following conflicts between armed insurgent groups and state security forces. The International Organization for Migration and attacks against communities have been taking place almost daily since the end of October, resulting in high levels of violence, forcing inhabitants to flee their homes. In addition, the IOM reported that there are more than 110,000 people trapped in the midst of the conflict, suffering constant torture, forced recruitment, and looting, among other types of abuses. And Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel arrived in the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria for an official visit from the 16th to the 19th of November. The Prime Minister and senior health and culture officials received the Cuban head of state. They all highlighted this visit takes place in a situation where both countries are represented. The presidents took place and highlighted the context of the 60th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between both countries. The president's work agenda in Algeria includes an exchange with his counterpart and a meeting with the collaborators of the island's medical brigade. Algeria is the first point in the Cuban president's tour, which will also include Russia, Turkey, and China. And 4 days before the opening game of the 2022 FIFA World Cup, fans from across the world gathered in Doha, Qatar, while security preparations are underway at some stadiums. This week-long countdown to the World Cup began on Monday as the world's leading footballers focused their attention on one of the most controversial tournaments in history. The first World Cup to be held in the Arab world will kick off on Sunday, when the host nation will face Ecuador. Holding football showpiece event in a desert state has required an unprecedented reorganization of the international calendar, shifting the World Cup from its normal slot in its northern hemisphere summer to avoid the Gulf's scorching heat.
We arrived this morning at midnight. We are among the first Mexicans to arrive here in Doha. We came to cheer on the Mexican national team, and we hope to get beyond the 5th match. We have come to cheer them on without fear of success. We arrived earlier today, around 2 o'clock in the morning, a large group of us from Córdoba. We have come to watch the games and we hope that on the 18th, we will all be here in blue and white, celebrating the victory in the World Cup.
And following the first international address by Brazil's President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva at COP27, indigenous peoples and indigenous communities expressed their hopes for the respect of their rights and environmental protection. Oscar Pildi from Sharm el-Sheikh with the following report.
Hello, Lula is back. The speech he gave in the heart of COP27 has indeed brought hope. The hope of a new governance that recognizes and includes the wisdom of indigenous people, that fights against deforestation and bandits, that seeks new ways to create wealth more responsibly, and that addresses, above all, inequalities. The returning Lula is a stronger Lula. He has announced that he will be equally demanding with rich countries, that finance and decisions must be fulfilled, that countries less responsible for climate change need sustainable financing for their adaptation, losses and damages. Everything that the most vulnerable developing countries have been demanding. They have now found an ally in a country like Brazil.
A new governance. And our president talked a lot about the need to change the United Nations for another governance, a climate governance.
There is hope for our communities that have the same challenge in other countries. This was an election of life or death for us. It was not a normal election. Since democratization, with this government, we were the most persecuted. Making a commitment to reduce emissions is an important step, and investing in projects. These are reasons for developing countries to find answers to the problem.
Tomorrow we will see what happens in the COP27. The key elements of Lula's speech must sink in tonight, tomorrow, soon.
And speaking before the attendees at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP27 in Egypt, Brazilian President-elect Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva said, while humanity has spent trillions of dollars in wars, there are still 900 million people around the world who have nothing to eat.
Spend trillions of dollars in wars that only bring destruction and death, while 900 million people around the world have nothing to eat. And we experience a moment where we have growing tensions and multiple crises, the risk of a nuclear war, geopolitical tensions, crisis of food supply, in energy too, and erosion of biodiversity, intolerable increase of inequality. These are hard times, but it was always in difficult times and crises that humanity found the force to confront and overcome the challenges.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also be sure to follow us on our socials. We're on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English, I am Estefania Bravo. Until next time.